Guys, I'm at a loss. Just when I thought we had seen both the most expensive and the cheapest AiOs possible from Thermalright, they just ripped the rug out from underneath us. This is the Thermalright Aqua Elite V6, the newest Aqua Elite that we meant to review about a month ago. And we're going to tell you all about it right here, right now on Robeytech, after a word from our sponsor. This video is brought to you by our official Robeytech Build Mat. If you've been watching the channel for a while, you'll probably recognize it. We love these things. They're super thick and durable, and they're absolutely huge in size, measuring at 5.5 millimeters thick and 24 by 48 inches wide. This one that we have right here, man, this has been in the studio for like 4 years, and it's still holding up great, no problem. We've also included all sorts of useful graphics showing different PC form factor sizes, including schematic diagrams and connectors you'll encounter probably during your PC build. Not to mention, there's plenty of open space for screw and tool organization. We designed it like this so no matter what skill level of builder you are, it could be a helpful tool for pretty much everyone. Now, you can find these build mats for sale on our Newegg store, and it's a great way to support us directly if you enjoy the content we make. Thank you so much for your support, and let's get back to the video. It should come as no surprise that Thermalright, who is pretty much the dominant force in the sub $100 AiO space, has yet another entry into the market. It's like they got an invitation to a wedding, and their plus one thought that they, and all of the other subsequent plus ones, also got a plus one, and they just kept piling in. It's actually pretty ridiculous when you start looking at how many AiOs Thermalright has in this space. In the $50 to $60 range alone, they have the Frozen Edge, the Frozen Warframe, the Frozen Infinity, the Frozen Prism, the Frozen Notate, the Frozen Magic, and the Aqua Elite, all with multiple iterations. That's 8 series of AiOs, all within a $10 span. And it just gets crazier the further you go out from there in price. But you know us, we're not dissuaded by the crazy, because if they're crazy good for the dollar, we want to know about it. What we also want to know is what separates the Aqua Elite V6 from the Aqua Elite V3 we saw a few weeks back. So we spent our own money to find out, because if this near $52 AiO from Thermalright can hold its own, it may just shake up our expectations of what kind of cooling is possible on a budget. We already mentioned the price, but we didn't quite get to the options. The Aqua Elite V6 is available in black or white for the same price for the 360mm version. If you need a more fun-sized version, it's available in 240mm for about $46. Now, we do need to point this out in case you go searching and see a $57 360mm version. They are 100% the same. But if you want to spend an extra $5 to say that you bought yours from Thermalright's European vendor, then who are we to stop you? As for price competition, we already gave you an extensive list from Thermalright, but there are other players in the space, like the VTrue Lurker V360 and the Setgotep KL360. Don't know how to say that. Now, while we haven't tested the KL360 just yet, we have tested the Lurker, so we'll be able to share some comparisons with you on that one. But if you're a lurker around here and you haven't yet, we'd love it if you'd hit those like, subscribe, and notification buttons here at Robeytech and Robeytech Live so that you get a notification each and every time we drop a video like this one, go live, and detail giveaways, because you know what? We have those also. But hey, if you're here to just lurk, go ahead. We're just glad you're here. Moving on to compatibility, the Aqua Elite V6 continues Thermalright's tradition of supporting both modern-day processors as well as the processor released during your emo phase. And if you did have one of those right, it's not a phase, Dad, in the comments. Now back to the V6. On the Intel side, there's support for modern sockets like the LGA 1851 and 1700, but support spans all the way back to LGA 115X. So if it has Core in the name, you're probably covered. On the AMD side, the V6 supports AM4 and AM5 sockets, so essentially the entire Ryzen family. As for installation, the Aqua Elite uses a similar set of brackets for installation like we've seen on the Frozen Warframe AiOs, as well as Thermalright's $300 Wonder Vision, which you should check out our review of right here. On AMD motherboards, the brackets tie right into the existing backplate. For Intel, you'll adjust the included bracket for your socket and then use the matching set of spacers along with it. Once your brackets and standoffs are in place, there are 2 posts that line up with the pre-installed nuts on the water block. We've pointed this out in other reviews of other Thermalright AiOs, but it's always worth mentioning. Make sure to evenly tighten the nuts so that way you can ensure that you have even contact between the cold plate and your CPU. Once that's done, plug in your power cable to the appropriate header, and don't forget to do the same for the 5-volt RGB header, and you're good to go. As you can probably imagine from the price and the installation, ARGB control is super simple. By connecting to your motherboard, you can just control those sweet rays of colored bliss from whatever software your motherboard is already using. Since we're talking about the RGB on the pump head, let's talk about what we know about the pump itself. Unfortunately, it's not much. On Thermalright's product page for the Aqua Elite V6, they call the pump inside here their 4th generation pump, with a max speed of 2800 RPM, give or take 10%. Now, depending on which of the previous Aqua Elites you're looking at, we've seen the pump speed span from 2600 to 3300 RPM. The last version we reviewed, the Aqua Elite V3, which you can actually see the review of right here, had a 3300 RPM pump. So the V6 has a different pump, but what about fans in the radiator? The radiator is actually pretty standard with a thickness of 27 millimeters, so nothing to report here. As for the fans, the V6 comes with fans that have a name that sounds like you're calling out bingo numbers, which seems to be a similar story for the previous generation fans too. What's also a similar story is that they come pre-installed on the radiator, which we actually love to see. Like I said though, these are different fans entirely, not just repackaged ones. So the fans that come with the V6 have a higher top speed, airflow, and static pressure than those of the old V3. This actually answers a big question that we had going into this review. Was Thermalright giving us the same AiO but in a different shell? Fortunately, the answer to that question is no, but let's see if the performance data tells us a different story. As a reminder, all of our AiO tests are performed in a nearly identical Intel and AMD PC. We'll post notes on the screen for details. All of this is done under the same conditions to keep the data as clean as absolutely possible. On another note, we're going to be removing idle data from our charts, largely because there are so many odd and uncontrollable processes that can impact the data. So we're removing it to help clean up what we're seeing and the story we're telling. Starting with our Intel bench, under full CPU load, the Aqua Elite V6 averaged just under 80 degrees Celsius, landing it around 2 degrees Celsius ahead of the V3 and close to 3 degrees Celsius ahead of the V2 Lurker. This is a strong start for the V6, but how does thermal performance translate into a higher Cinebench score? The answer all depends on what you're comparing the V6 to. With a score of 33,366, it landed at just about an equal distance between the V3 at the high end and the Lurker at the low end. We're also talking about less than a 100-point difference here, so the scores are actually pretty tight. We look at the average wattage here, the V6 is allowing our 14700K to draw just north of 246 watts under load, which is pretty impressive when you compare it to the surrounding AiOs on our charts. While the Ryujin 3 Extreme and the HydroShift 2 TL are both making room for higher power draw, the Aqua Elite is showing its elite cooling status among more elitely priced AiOs. Moving on to our gaming benchmarks, the V6 and V3 continued their feud in our CPU load tests. Both AiOs averaged just above 50 degrees Celsius, but the V6 took a 0.2 degree lead over the V3. For context, it performs so close to the Thermalright Frozen Warframe Pro that we had to squint to see the difference. Now, from a power draw standpoint, the Aqua Elite V6 moved closer to the lower end of our charts with an average power draw over 97 watts. This sandwiched it between AiOs like the Fantex Glacier 1 M25 G2 and the yet-to-be-reviewed but also sub-$100 ID Cooling DX360 Max, which, stick around for that one, that's an interesting story. Now, moving on to the AMD side, under CPU load, the Aqua Elite V6 differentiated itself from the V3 with an average right in between 85 and 86 degrees Celsius. The V6 was a degree and some change cooler than the V3. This average positioned the V6 near the cooler side of our charts comparatively, with AiOs like Corsair's Titan RX and the CPS PC Cooling DT360. As for Cinebench, the Aqua Elite V6 made its name known near the top end of our charts. Again, the scores here are super tight, but it put plenty of space between its score of 19,716 and the score of its past self. For the power draw under load, most of our tested AiOs on AMD averaged between 144 and 145 watts on our 7700X. Within the roster, the Aqua Elite V6 was on the lower side of 144 watts, right next to the V2 Lurker. Again, it's interesting to see the Aqua Elite V6 allowing our test CPU to run cooler while drawing more power under load than the V3. Moving on to our gaming benchmarks, the Aqua Elite V6 did not mess around at all. With an average of just over 51 degrees Celsius, the V6 muscled the NZXT Kraken Elite out of third place and put less than a half a degree between itself and 2025's reigning king of cool, the Lian Li Galahad 2 Lite. As for power draw here, the Aqua Elite V6 drew the second lowest average of just below 75 watts. Now let's talk about noise levels. We recorded the Aqua Elite V6 at just below 47 decibels while fans running in our gaming benchmarks, and just under 63 decibels with fans running at 100% under CPU load. This decibel range puts the V6 on the lower side of the volume range, but honestly, most AiOs do not get louder than your case fans. For context, this range is like the difference between the melodic hum of a refrigerator and the industrious whir of an air conditioner, but not like an air conditioner racking up overtime in some place like Arizona. Okay, one more data point before we close out. Let's look at the relative value with some fancy math. As a reminder, we're dividing the MSRP by the difference between the CPU thermal max, which is 100 degrees Celsius, and the average CPU temperature under load. This gives us a dollars per degree of cooling value, which we can then score and compare. In this case, lower is better. These numbers are based off of the data we collect from our Intel bench and the MSRP at launch. Understand that these values will obviously change over time, but you can do the math to see where things land today. And just where do they land today? With a relative value score of 2.6, the Thermalright Aqua Elite V6 pushes aside the Aqua Elite V3 and dethrones the frozen Note to become the ultimate relative value proposition leader. But value is different for everyone, and this metric only tells part of the story. And with that, we have to ask, is the Thermalright Aqua Elite V6 worthy of becoming your next AiO? If you're trying to maximize your budget, then absolutely. The Thermalright Aqua Elite V6 definitely brings adequate to exceptional cooling performance to the table while simultaneously being one of the least expensive 360mm AiOs we've tested to date. Installation is fairly simple, as is the ARGB, and simple isn't a bad thing. Is it the best looking AiO? Well, if you like your AiO pump to look like fancy rims along with some ARGB, it has a certain appeal. Just don't expect it to be feature rich. The Aqua Elite V6 has one job and it sticks to the basics. And honestly, there's really not anything to be mad about with this particular AiO. So if we're being picky, and I mean super picky, the V6 does feel like it's taking a step back when we have a slower pump than the previous iteration. However, it's not like we're seeing the performance of the Aqua Elite V6 suffer because of it. In most cases, it either matched or outperformed the V3 while putting enough distance between itself and its price competitor, even from Thermalright, to call this impressive by comparison. I know I said this in the intro, but we really did think we had already seen the best performance you could expect out of a budget AiO when we look at the Aqua Elite V3 and the frozen Note. But Thermalright went in and they just surprised us. Again, if you're building a PC on a budget and your build needs a bump in cooling power, you may not want to sleep on the Aqua Elite V6. That would actually be painful, first and foremost, and number two, could do a lot for your build. So those are our thoughts on the Aqua Elite V6, but we want to know what you think. Were you impressed by this new iteration? Do you like the way it looks? And do you think Thermalright has too many AiO options? Let us know down in the comments below. And while you're down there, make sure you slap that subscribe button, whip that like button, and ring that notification bell so that you get a notification each and every time we post a video like this right here on Robeytech. And if you want to continue the conversation, maybe you're still not sure if this is the right AiO for you, head over to our Discord server, discord.gg/Robeytech. It's an amazing place to meet other tech and PC enthusiasts and talk about stuff just like this. And you know what? You might just make a friend. Also, make sure you follow us at Robeytech on all your other favorite social media platforms. And if you made it this far, I want to say a huge thank you for sticking with me this far, and I look forward to seeing you on the next one.